The cold winter wind whipped through Jessica Taylor's thin jacket as she clutched her twins closer to her chest. At 26, with disheveled brown hair and exhausted blue eyes, she never imagined she'd be standing on the steps of Evergreen Adoption Agency, preparing to sign away the two most precious things in her life. 6-month-old Noah and Sophia slept peacefully, unaware that their mother was about to make the most heartbreaking decision of her life. "It's almost time," Jessica whispered, tears streaming down her face as she kissed each of their foreheads. The twins were beautiful, Noah with his tuft of dark hair, and Sophia with her rosy cheeks and tiny dimple. But love wasn't enough to feed them, to provide a roof over their heads, or to give them the future they deserved. Jessica had tried everything. After her husband Mark died in a construction accident 4 months ago, leaving her with overwhelming medical bills and a mountain of debt, she had worked 3 jobs, slept barely 4 hours a night, sold everything of value she owned, and still couldn't make ends meet. The final blow came last week when she received an eviction notice. With no family to turn to and nowhere to go, she had made the impossible choice, finding a loving home for her children where they could thrive. "Mrs. Taylor?" a gentle voice called from the doorway. "We're ready for you now." Jessica nodded, taking one last deep breath of the crisp morning air. The interior of the adoption agency was warm and inviting, with soft lighting and comfortable furniture designed to ease the pain of moments exactly like this one. Mrs. Richards, the agency director, greeted her with understanding eyes and a sympathetic smile. "The Wilsons are very excited, Mrs. Richards said softly, leading Jessica to a conference room. "They've been hoping to adopt for years. They have a beautiful home in the suburbs, with a backyard and a swing set already installed." Jessica tried to find comfort in these words, but each step down the hallway felt like walking through quicksand. The Wilsons seemed like wonderful people from the profiles she had reviewed, stable, loving, financially secure, everything she couldn't provide right now. "Can I have just a few more minutes with them?" Jessica asked, her voice cracking. "Of course, dear, take all the time you need." Alone in the conference room, Jessica cradled her babies, memorizing every detail of their faces. "I want you to know this isn't because I don't love you," she whispered. "I love you more than anything in this world. That's why I have to do this. Someday, I hope you'll understand." A soft knock on the door interrupted her goodbye. Mrs. Richards poked her head in. "Jessica, there's been a development. Could you come with me for a moment? The agency's benefactor is here and would like to speak with you." Confused, Jessica carefully placed the twins in their carrier and followed Mrs. Richards down a different hallway to a large office she hadn't seen before. Behind an imposing desk sat a man who commanded attention without effort. Tall with broad shoulders, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that screamed success, Jackson Montgomery was known throughout the city as a business titan. His real estate development company had transformed the skyline, and his philanthropic efforts made regular headlines. "Mrs. Taylor," he stood as she entered, his deep voice surprisingly gentle. "Please, have a seat." Jessica sat tentatively, suddenly aware of her worn clothes and tired appearance. "I don't understand why I'm here, Mr. Montgomery." His grey eyes studied her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "I review all cases that come through this agency," he explained. "Yours caught my attention." Before he could continue, Noah began to fuss. Without thinking, Jessica reached into the carrier to soothe him, her maternal instincts overriding everything else. "You're a natural mother," Jackson observed quietly. "It doesn't matter how natural I am if I can't provide for them," Jessica replied, the bitterness in her voice surprising even herself. Jackson leaned forward, clasping his hands together. "Mrs. Taylor." "Jessica, please." "Jessica," he corrected himself. "I understand you lost your husband recently. You're facing eviction, struggling with medical bills, and working multiple jobs just to stay afloat." She nodded, wondering how he knew so many details about her situation. "I also understand that you don't want to give up your children." At this, Jessica's composure cracked. "Of course I don't want to give them up. They're everything to me. But what choice do I have? I'm sleeping in my car next week if I don't figure something out." Jackson nodded thoughtfully, then stood and walked to the window, his back to her. "5 years ago, my sister was in a similar position," he said, his voice softer now. "Single mother, struggling to make ends meet, too proud to ask for help. He paused, his shoulders tensing visibly. She didn't reach out to me until it was too late. The stress, the exhaustion, her heart gave out. Her daughter, my niece, has lived with me ever since. He turned back to face Jessica, his expression unreadable. I've often wondered what would have happened if someone had intervened sooner. I'm sorry about your sister, Jessica said sincerely, but I don't see— I'll take them, Jackson interrupted, his words hanging in the air between them. Jessica blinked, certain she had misheard. Excuse me? Not permanently, he clarified quickly. I'm not here to adopt your children, Jessica. I'm offering you a way to keep them. Mrs. Richards, who had been standing quietly by the door, gasped audibly. I don't understand, Jessica whispered. Jackson returned to his seat, his expression softening. I have a proposition. I own a building downtown that includes several residential apartments. One of them is vacant, 3 bedrooms, fully furnished. It's yours, rent-free, for a year. Additionally, I'd like to offer you a position at Montgomery Enterprises. Our HR department needs an assistant, and from your resume, you're more than qualified. Jessica stared at him, waiting for the punchline. Why would you do this for a complete stranger? Because sometimes people just need a chance, he replied simply, and because I couldn't save my sister, but maybe I can help you. There has to be a catch, Jessica insisted, years of hardship having taught her that nothing came without strings attached. Jackson smiled slightly. The catch is that you have to accept help, which I suspect isn't easy for you. The position pays well, includes full benefits, and has childcare on site. All I ask is that you work hard and that someday, when you're back on your feet, you find a way to help someone else. Sophia began to stir now too, tiny fists waving in the air. Jessica looked down at her babies, then back at the man whose offer seemed too good to be true. What about the Wilsons? She asked softly. They're expecting to meet their new children today. Mrs. Richards stepped forward. We have other children who need homes, Jessica. The Wilsons will understand. A fragile hope began to bloom in Jessica's chest, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in months. Can I really do this? Keep my babies? You can, Jackson affirmed. And you will. The papers on my desk aren't adoption forms. They're employment contracts and a lease agreement. Instead of signing your children away today, you could be signing the beginning of a new chapter for all 3 of you. Jessica's hands trembled as she reached for the tissues Mrs. Richards offered. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall, covering the city in a blanket of white, a clean slate, a fresh start. For the first time in months, Jessica allowed herself to imagine a future where she didn't have to say goodbye to her children. Why me? She asked, needing to understand. Jackson's expression darkened briefly with what might have been pain. Let's just say I recognize determination when I see it. So, Jessica Taylor, what will it be? As if answering for her, both twins opened their eyes at that moment, looking up at their mother with complete trust and love. 3 months later, Jessica sat at her desk in the Montgomery Enterprises headquarters, efficiently organizing Jackson's schedule for the upcoming week. The job had proven challenging but rewarding, allowing her to use skills she'd developed during her business administration degree, a degree she'd never fully utilized until now. Morning, Jessica, called Megan Johnson, the marketing director, as she breezed past. Those twins of yours getting any easier to handle? Jessica laughed, pointing to a new photo frame on her desk showing Noah and Sophia sitting side by side, matching mischievous grins on their faces. They're crawling everywhere now. I had to baby-proof my entire apartment last weekend. Her apartment. The word still felt strange in her mouth. The spacious 3-bedroom unit in the Montgomery, one of Jackson's premier residential buildings, was more beautiful than anywhere she'd ever lived. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered breathtaking views of the city. The kitchen gleamed with stainless steel appliances, and the twins' nursery was larger than her entire previous apartment. Sometimes, in quiet moments when the babies were asleep, Jessica would sit on her balcony and try to process how dramatically her life had changed. From the brink of homelessness to this, it felt surreal, like she might wake up at any moment back in her old reality. Jessica. The intercom on her desk buzzed with Jackson's deep voice. Could you come in for a moment? Of course, Mr. Montgomery, she replied, still maintaining professional formality despite his repeated requests to call him Jackson. When she entered his office, she found him standing by the window, looking out at the city sprawled below. At 42, Jackson Montgomery cut an impressive figure, tall and athletic, with salt and pepper hair that only enhanced his distinguished appearance. He turned as she entered, his serious expressions softening slightly. "How are the twins adjusting to the daycare center?" he asked. "They love it," Jessica replied, feeling the now familiar surge of gratitude. The state-of-the-art childcare facility on the ground floor of the building was a perk she had never imagined possible, and being able to visit her babies during lunch breaks was a luxury that helped ease her working mother guilt. "Good." Jackson nodded, then gestured to a stack of papers on his desk. "I have a charity gala coming up this weekend. Black tie, very important donors. I need someone I can trust to help coordinate with the event planner." Jessica blinked in surprise. "How you want me to help with that? Wouldn't your personal assistant be better suited?" "Samantha is on maternity leave, as you know," Jackson replied, "and you've demonstrated exceptional organizational skills these past months. Plus," he added with a rare smile, "you have impeccable taste." Before Jessica could respond, his expression grew serious again. "The only issue is that it requires some evening work this week and attendance at the event Saturday night." "I understand if that's too much with the twins. I can make it work," Jessica interrupted, determination flaring. This was an opportunity to prove herself beyond administrative tasks, and she wasn't about to let it slip away. "My neighbor, Mrs. Collins, loves watching the babies. She's already offered to help any time." Jackson studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well. The event planner will be here at 4 p.m. And Jessica—" He hesitated. "This will involve overtime pay, of course." "Thank you, Mr. Montgomery," she replied professionally, even as her mind raced with the implications. Extra money meant she could start building a savings account, something that had seemed like an impossible luxury just months ago. As she turned to leave, Jackson called after her. "And Jessica, you'll need something appropriate to wear for Saturday night." Heat rushed to her cheeks as she thought of her limited wardrobe. "I'll figure something out." "No need. Megan will take you shopping tomorrow. Company expense. Consider it part of the job requirement." Jessica opened her mouth to protest, then closed it again. Learning to accept help remained her greatest challenge. "Thank you," she said instead, and was rewarded with another rare smile. Later that evening, as Jessica bathed the twins in their spacious bathroom, she couldn't help but marvel at how happy they seemed. Noah splashed enthusiastically, soaking her shirt, while Sophia methodically squeezed water from a colorful toy sponge, her face a picture of concentration. "You two have no idea how close we came to losing each other," Jessica murmured, gently washing Sophia's dark curls. The memory of that day at the adoption agency still haunted her dreams sometimes, the weight of the decision, the desperation, the hopelessness. After tucking the twins into their cribs, Jessica curled up on her couch with a cup of tea, pulling out her laptop to research charity galas and appropriate attire. A knock at her door startled her. She opened it to find Jackson standing there, looking oddly informal in jeans and a sweater instead of his usual business attire. "Mr. Montgomery," she gasped, suddenly aware of her own worn pajama pants and faded t-shirt. "Is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," he assured her, holding up a folder. "I realized after you left that I forgot to give you the details for the gala. I was in the building checking on a maintenance issue, so I thought I'd drop it off personally." Jessica stepped aside to let him in, her mind racing with awareness of her messy ponytail and bare feet. She had never seen Jackson outside of work contexts, and having him in her personal space felt strangely intimate. "Can I offer you some tea?" she asked, falling back on basic hospitality. "No, thank you." "I won't stay long." His eyes traveled around her apartment, taking in the toys scattered across the floor, the baby blankets draped over furniture, the photos she'd put up to make the place feel like home. "You've settled in well." "It's more than I ever dreamed of," Jessica admitted quietly. "I don't know if I've properly thanked you for everything." Jackson waved away her gratitude, uncomfortable as always with acknowledgement of his generosity. "How's the nighttime schedule with the twins? Any easier?" "Some nights are better than others. Sophia's starting to sleep through, but Noah still wakes up at least once." She smiled wryly. "I've forgotten what 8 consecutive hours of sleep feels like." A strange expression crossed Jackson's face. "My sister used to say the same thing." He rarely mentioned his sister, and Jessica felt a pang of sympathy for the loss she knew still affected him deeply. "Would you like to see them?" she offered impulsively. "They're just down the hall. They might still be awake." Something vulnerable flickered across Jackson's typically guarded features. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Jessica led him to the nursery where, sure enough, Noah was still awake, practicing his new skill of pulling himself up to stand in his crib. He grinned at the sight of his mother, showing off his 4 tiny teeth. "Hey, little man," Jessica whispered, lifting him into her arms. "There's someone I want you to meet." She turned to find Jackson watching with an expression she couldn't quite decipher, something between longing and caution. "Would you like to hold him?" she asked. Jackson hesitated, then carefully took Noah, who immediately reached for his tie clip, a small silver airplane that caught the soft nursery light. "He likes shiny things," Jessica explained with a smile. "Smart boy," Jackson murmured, allowing Noah to examine the clip. "My father gave me this when I made my first million, said I could finally go anywhere I wanted." A shadow passed over his face. "Turns out money can't take you everywhere you want to go." The unexpected vulnerability in his voice made Jessica look at him more carefully. For the first time, she saw beyond the powerful CEO to the man beneath, someone who, despite his success, carried his own burdens and regrets. "Your sister would be proud of how you're helping others," Jessica said softly. Jackson's jaw tightened. "I should have done more for her." "You're doing something now," she replied. "That matters." They stood in silence for a moment, the only sound Noah's contented babbling as he played with the shiny clip. Then suddenly, as if remembering himself, Jackson carefully handed the baby back to Jessica. "I should go," he said, his professional demeanor returning like a shield. "The folder has everything you need for the gala. I'll see you tomorrow." As he turned to leave, Jessica called after him, "Mr. Montgomery? Jackson?" He paused, looking back at her with raised eyebrows. "Thank you. Not just for the job and the apartment, for giving us a chance." Something in his expression softened. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Jessica. Even me." With that cryptic statement, he was gone, leaving Jessica standing in the nursery doorway, wondering about the man who had saved her family and what demons he might be fighting of his own. The charity gala was unlike anything Jessica had ever experienced. The Grand Meridian Hotel ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and elegant floral arrangements, while the city's elite mingled in designer formal wear, diamonds catching the light with every gesture. Jessica smoothed down the midnight blue gown Megan had helped her select, a floor-length silk creation that made her feel like a different person entirely. "You look stunning," Megan whispered, appearing beside her with 2 champagne flutes. "Half the room can't take their eyes off you." Jessica blushed, accepting the drink. "I feel like an imposter. 3 months ago, I was serving drinks at events like this, not attending them." "Well, you belong here now," Megan assured her before being pulled away by another colleague. Jessica circulated the room, checking final details with the event staff as Jackson had instructed. Everything was running smoothly. The silent auction was generating impressive bids. The catering was flawless, and the string quartet provided perfect background ambiance. She felt a surge of pride at being part of something so successful. "Mrs. Taylor," a server approached with a message. "Mr. Montgomery requests your presence near the east entrance." Jessica made her way through the crowd, spotting Jackson deep in conversation with an elderly couple. He looked especially handsome tonight in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, commanding attention without effort. "Ah, here she is," Jackson said as she approached, extending his hand toward her. "William, Margaret, this is Jessica Taylor, the coordinator who made tonight possible." Jessica shook hands with the couple, recognizing William Parker as one of the city's wealthiest philanthropists. "It's a pleasure to meet you both. I hope you're enjoying the evening." "Indeed we are," William replied warmly. "Jackson was just telling us about your remarkable journey." Jessica froze, eyes darting to Jackson. How much had he shared about her personal circumstances? "Jessica joined Montgomery Enterprises recently and has already proven invaluable," Jackson said smoothly. "Her organizational skills saved this event when our regular planner fell ill." Relief washed over her. Of course, he wouldn't have revealed her private struggles. "Well, you've done a magnificent job," Margaret said kindly, "and your children are fortunate to have such a resourceful mother." Before Jessica could respond, William added, "Jackson mentioned you're a single parent. My foundation has a scholarship program for children of single parents. I'd be happy to put your little ones' names down for consideration when they're ready for college." Touched by the unexpected kindness, Jessica managed to thank them before they moved on to greet other guests. You told them about the twins? She asked Jackson once they were alone. He shrugged, looking slightly uncomfortable. William and Margaret have been supporters of family-focused initiatives for decades. Your story resonates with people. Something about his tone made Jessica study him more carefully. Are you using my situation to generate sympathy donations? Jackson's expression hardened. I mentioned that a talented new employee is also managing twins as a single mother. Is that a problem? It is when you didn't ask my permission first, Jessica replied, keeping her voice low despite her rising anger. My personal life isn't a marketing tool for your charity. That's not what, Jackson began, but was interrupted by the event coordinator announcing dinner would be served shortly. We'll discuss this later, he said with finality, offering his arm to escort her to the head table as protocol demanded. Throughout dinner, Jessica maintained a professional smile while seething internally. She had believed Jackson respected her, but now wondered if she'd been naive. Perhaps she was just another project to him, a way to assuage his guilt over his sister. As the dessert plates were being cleared, Jackson rose to deliver his speech. Jessica had helped prepare it, crafting language about community responsibility and the impact of the children's hospital wing the gala was funding. She watched as he commanded the room, his deep voice resonating with sincerity, as he spoke about families facing medical crises. Many of you know that this cause holds personal significance for me, Jackson said, departing from the prepared text. 5 years ago, my sister Catherine died because she couldn't access proper health care. She was a single mother, working multiple jobs, too proud to ask for help until it was too late. A hush fell over the room. Jessica sat straighter, realizing she was about to hear the full story he had only hinted at before. Catherine left behind a daughter, my niece Lily, who's now 8 years old, Jackson continued, his voice rougher than usual. What you may not know is that I didn't make things easy for my sister. When she got pregnant and decided to raise the child alone, I judged her. I offered financial help, but withheld my emotional support when she needed it most. Jessica watched, transfixed, as the polished CEO revealed raw vulnerability before hundreds of people. By the time I understood what truly matters, it was too late for apologies, he said. The stress of her situation had weakened her heart. She collapsed while working a night shift. Her daughter was home alone. Gasps rippled through the audience. Jessica felt tears pricking her eyes. That's why this new hospital wing isn't just another project. It's about making healthcare accessible to everyone, regardless of their circumstances. It's about ensuring no child loses a parent, because that parent couldn't afford to take care of themselves. Jackson's gaze swept the room, landing briefly on Jessica. And it's about second chances, for patients, for families, and sometimes for those of us who failed the first time around. The applause was thunderous as Jackson concluded. Jessica sat motionless, processing the revelation. His earlier comment about even me deserving a second chance suddenly made sense. This wasn't just about helping her, it was about redemption for his own perceived failures. Later, as the evening wound down and guests began departing, Jessica found Jackson alone on the terrace staring out at the city lights. I owe you an apology, she said softly, joining him at the railing. I misjudged your intentions earlier. He turned to her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. No, you were right. I should have asked before sharing details about your life, however vague. It won't happen again. Jessica nodded, accepting his acknowledgement. After a moment's hesitation, she added, Your speech was powerful. I didn't realize how personal this cause was for you. Few people do, he replied. I prefer keeping my private life private. Yet you shared it with hundreds of people tonight. A faint smile touched his lips. Sometimes vulnerability serves a greater purpose. Tonight, it helped raise almost $2 million for the children's wing. They stood in companionable silence, the spring breeze carrying distant city sounds. Jessica found herself studying his profile, seeing him with new eyes, not just as her benefactor or boss, but as a man carrying profound regret. Where is Lily now? She asked gently. With her grandparents, Catherine's in-laws. They're wonderful people who provide stability I couldn't offer with my work schedule. Pain flickered across his features. I see her regularly, but I'm more the fun uncle than a parental figure. You could change that, you know, Jessica suggested. If you wanted to. Jackson turned to face her fully. What makes you say that? I've seen you with Noah. You're a natural. She smiled at his surprised expression. People can learn to rearrange priorities. I certainly have. Before he could respond, Megan appeared at the terrace doorway. Jessica, the caterers need final approval on something. Duty calls, Jessica said, turning to leave. Jessica, Jackson called after her. When she looked back, he seemed on the verge of saying something important, but instead finished with, You did excellent work tonight. Thank you. The following Monday, Jessica arrived at work to find an envelope on her desk containing a substantial bonus for her gala work and a handwritten note from Jackson. Your contribution made all the difference. The hospital wing will break ground next month. Life fell into a comfortable rhythm over the next few weeks. Jessica excelled at her job. The twins continued thriving in daycare, and her relationship with Jackson evolved into something resembling friendship. He began stopping by her desk to ask about the twins, occasionally bringing small gifts for them, educational toys or books he thought they might enjoy. One evening, Jessica received a text from Jackson asking if she was still at the office. When she confirmed she was finishing up some reports, he appeared at her desk minutes later. I need a favor, he said without preamble. Lily's grandparents had an emergency and she's staying with me for the weekend. I'm picking her up from school tomorrow, but I have no idea what 8-year-old girls like to do. Any suggestions? Jessica couldn't help but smile at the slight panic in his eyes. The Children's Museum has a new interactive exhibit she might enjoy, or the Botanical Gardens are hosting a butterfly release on Saturday. Perfect, he said, visibly relieved. Would you and the twins like to join us? Safety in numbers. When she hesitated, he added quickly, as friends, of course, and Lily would probably enjoy meeting other children. We'd love to, Jessica heard herself saying before she could overthink it. Saturday dawned bright and clear. Perfect weather for the Botanical Gardens. Jessica dressed the twins in matching outfits, unable to deny the flutter of anticipation she felt about seeing Jackson outside of work again. When his sleek SUV pulled up outside her building, she was surprised to see him in casual clothes, jeans and a simple button-down that somehow made him look younger and more approachable. A slender girl with dark hair and serious eyes watched from the passenger seat as Jessica secured the twins in their car seats in the back. Lily, this is Jessica and her twins, Noah and Sophia, Jackson introduced them. Jessica works with me. Hi, Lily said shyly, studying Jessica with unmistakable curiosity. At the gardens, they made an unusual group. The powerful CEO, the young single mother, the solemn 8-year-old, and the babbling twins in their double stroller. To Jessica's surprise, Jackson seemed completely at ease, pointing out different plants to Lily and listening attentively to her observations. During the butterfly release, a blue morpho landed on Sophia's hand, causing the baby to squeal with delight. The sound made Lily giggle, breaking through her reserve. Can I push their stroller? She asked Jessica tentatively. Of course, Jessica replied, showing her how to navigate the paths. As Lily proudly took charge of the twins, Jackson fell into step beside Jessica. Thank you for coming today. This is the longest I've seen her smile in ages. She's a wonderful girl, Jessica said sincerely. You should be proud of her. I am, he admitted, but I'm not the one who raised her. I'm just the uncle who visits. It's never too late to be more, Jessica offered gently. Jackson's gaze lingered on her face. Maybe you're right. As they walked through a tunnel of flowering vines, Jessica became acutely aware of how close they were standing, of the way sunlight filtered through leaves to dance across his features, of how different he seemed outside the confines of the office. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine a different reality, one where they weren't employer and employee, where the complicated history between them didn't exist. The moment shattered when Lily called out excitedly, "Uncle Jack, come look at this huge butterfly." As Jackson moved ahead to join his niece, Jessica felt a strange sense of loss. She reminded herself firmly of all he had done for her family, the job, the apartment, the second chance at life. Developing feelings for him would only complicate an already complex situation. She couldn't afford to risk the stability she'd finally achieved. Yet watching him lift Lily to better see the butterfly exhibit, Jessica couldn't ignore the warmth spreading through her chest or the dangerous thought that kept surfacing. despite her best efforts to suppress it. What if there could be more? 2 weeks after the botanical garden outing, Jessica arrived at work to find her desk covered with urgent messages. Jackson had been called away on an emergency business trip to London the night before, and the office was in chaos. As she sorted through the crisis, fielding calls and rearranging his schedule, her cell phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. "Is this Jessica Taylor?" a woman's voice asked when she answered. "Yes, this is she." "This is Principal Matthews from Oak Ridge Elementary. I'm calling about Lily Montgomery. You're listed as her emergency contact." Jessica's heart skipped a beat. "Is she all right?" "She's fine, but she's running a fever. We've been trying to reach her grandparents and her uncle, but her uncle is out of the country," Jessica supplied, already gathering her things. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. She quickly informed Megan of the situation and headed to the school, her mind racing. When had Jackson added her as Lily's emergency contact, and why hadn't he mentioned it? At the school, she found Lily in the nurse's office, cheeks flushed with fever, looking small and vulnerable in an oversized chair. "Jessica!" Lily's eyes widened with surprise, then relief. "Where's Uncle Jack?" "He had to go to London for work, sweetheart," Jessica explained, placing a cool hand on the girl's forehead. "He's trying to get back as soon as possible, but meanwhile, you're coming home with me." After collecting Lily's things and stopping at a pharmacy for children's fever reducer, Jessica brought the girl to her apartment. She settled Lily on the couch with a blanket and some juice, then called the twins' daycare to explain she'd be working from home. "Is Uncle Jack in trouble?" Lily asked suddenly, her brown eyes serious despite her illness. Jessica paused in the middle of setting up her laptop. "No, why would you think that? He left so fast, and he seemed worried before he went." Lily fidgeted with her blanket. "That's what happened before my mom died. Everyone was worried but wouldn't tell me why." Jessica's heart ached for the child who had already experienced such profound loss. She sat beside Lily, choosing her words carefully. "Your uncle had an unexpected work emergency, but he's fine. Sometimes adults have to deal with complicated problems, and they don't always explain everything to kids because they don't want them to worry. But I worry anyway," Lily said quietly. "I know, that's because you're smart and observant." Jessica smiled gently. "How about this? I'll try to reach your uncle and let him know you're okay. Would that help?" Lily nodded, her eyelids growing heavy as the medication began to take effect. Once Lily had fallen asleep, Jessica called Jackson's international number. It went straight to voicemail. She left a brief message explaining the situation and assuring him that Lily was safe with her. The twins returned from daycare full of energy, curious about their new guest. To Jessica's surprise, Lily perked up at their arrival, her fever having broken earlier. She sat on the floor with them, showing remarkable patience as Noah repeatedly handed her the same toy car to examine. "You're really good with them," Jessica observed as she prepared dinner. Lily shrugged, a hint of sadness crossing her features. "Mom always said I'd be a good big sister someday." That night, after putting all 3 children to bed, Lily in the guest room she'd quickly prepared, Jessica finally received a text from Jackson. "Landing in 3 hours. Can't thank you enough. We'll come straight there." True to his word, a soft knock came at her door shortly after midnight. Jessica opened it to find Jackson looking exhausted, his suit rumpled from travel. "How is she?" he asked immediately, concern etched on his face. "Fever's gone." "She's sleeping peacefully," Jessica assured him, inviting him in. "Would you like to see her?" Jackson nodded, following Jessica to the guest room where Lily slept curled around a stuffed rabbit Jessica had found in her closet. He stood in the doorway, watching his niece for a long moment, tension visibly draining from his shoulders. "I didn't know you'd listed me as her emergency contact," Jessica said softly as they returned to the living room. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "I should have asked first. It was presumptuous." "It's fine," Jessica assured him. "I'm glad you trust me with her." "More than trust," Jackson admitted, sinking onto her couch. "You're the only person besides her grandparents I'd want caring for her if I couldn't." The simple statement carried weight that hung in the air between them. Jessica busied herself making tea, unsure how to respond. "The London situation. Is everything okay?" she asked, changing the subject. Jackson's expression darkened. "A hostile takeover attempt of one of our subsidiaries. I managed to stop it, but barely." He accepted the mug she offered with a grateful nod. "I'm sorry for leaving you to handle everything. It's my job." Jessica reminded him with a small smile, though picking up your niece might be slightly outside my job description. About that, Jackson began, then hesitated. Jessica, I've been thinking a lot lately about priorities. About what really matters. Something in his tone made her heart beat faster. She sat carefully on the opposite end of the couch, waiting. Seeing you with the twins, how you've built a life for them despite everything, it's made me realize what I've been missing with Lily. He stared into his tea as if the answers were floating there. I've been the uncle who visits, who sends gifts, who takes her for occasional outings. But I've never been what she really needs, family who's fully present. It's not too late to change that, Jessica said gently. Jackson looked up, his grey eyes meeting hers with unexpected vulnerability. That's what I want to do. I've decided to petition for full custody of Lily. Jackson, that's wonderful, Jessica exclaimed. Have you told her yet? Not yet. Her grandparents are supportive. They're getting older and finding it harder to keep up with an active child. But I needed to be sure I could really do this before discussing it with Lily. He set down his mug, looking troubled. My life isn't exactly set up for parenthood. The travel, the long hours. You'll figure it out, Jessica assured him. Every parent does. And Lily already adores you. There's something else, Jackson said, his voice dropping lower. Something I need to tell you. Jessica felt a flutter of nerves at his serious tone. What is it? The day you came to the adoption agency. It wasn't a coincidence that I was there. He met her gaze directly. The agency director called me because your situation reminded her of my sister's. She thought I might want to help. Jessica stilled, processing this revelation. So it wasn't just chance? No, Jackson admitted. But everything that happened afterward, offering you the job, getting to know you and the twins, none of that was planned. It just evolved. I see, Jessica said quietly, unsure how to feel about this new information. I need you to understand something, Jackson continued, leaning forward intently. What began as an attempt to help someone in a situation similar to Catherine's became something else entirely, something I wasn't expecting. And what was that? Jessica asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jackson hesitated, then spoke with careful deliberation. I found myself looking forward to seeing you each day. Thinking about you and the twins when I was away from the office, wondering what it might be like if... He broke off, shaking his head. I'm your employer, Jessica. There are boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. Jessica's heart raced as she realized what he was saying. The attraction she'd felt wasn't one-sided after all. And if I wasn't your employee? Their eyes locked, the question hanging between them. Before Jackson could answer, a small voice came from the hallway. Uncle Jack. They both turned to see Lily standing in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep. Hey, kiddo, Jackson said, his voice softening instantly as he held out his arms. Lily ran to him, climbing onto his lap with the ease of complete trust. Feeling better? She nodded against his chest. Can we go home now? Of course, he said, stroking her hair. But first I want to talk to you about something important. He glanced at Jessica, who nodded encouragingly. How would you feel about coming to live with me? Not just for visits, but all the time. Lily pulled back, studying his face with surprising intensity for a child. You mean, like you'd be my dad? Jackson swallowed visibly. If you'd want that. I know I can't replace your mom, but... She'd like it, Lily interrupted with the simple certainty of childhood. She always said you needed someone to take care of you. Jackson laughed, a sound of both joy and released tension. Did she now? Lily nodded solemnly. She said you worked too hard and forgot about the important stuff. Your mom was very wise, Jessica interjected softly. Lily turned, seeming to notice Jessica's presence again. Would you and the babies come visit us? Noah showed me his blocks. Jessica glanced at Jackson, whose expression held a question of his own. I'm sure we could arrange that, she said carefully. 6 months later, Jessica stood in the entryway of Jackson's penthouse, watching as Lily helped the twins build a tower of colorful blocks on the living room floor. At nearly 13 months old, Noah and Sophia were walking now, babbling constantly, their personalities emerging more clearly each day. They adore her, Jackson said, appearing beside Jessica with 2 glasses of wine. The feeling is mutual, Jessica replied, accepting the glass. She's been asking when they can have their next sleepover. The past months had brought significant changes for all of them. Jackson had reorganized his entire life around Lily, delegating more responsibilities at work to spend evenings and weekends with his niece. Jessica had been promoted to Director of Community Outreach, a new position created to expand the company's philanthropic initiatives, and their relationship had evolved as well. Once Jessica moved departments, no longer reporting directly to Jackson, they had cautiously begun exploring the connection between them, first with coffee meetings to discuss Lily and the twins, then dinners after the children were asleep, and gradually the acknowledgement of deeper feelings. "I received the final custody papers today," Jackson said, leading her to the balcony where they could speak privately. "Lily is officially my daughter now." "That's wonderful," Jessica said, genuinely happy for them both. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying. Exhilarating." He smiled, the tension that had once seemed permanent in his features now rarely present. "Like I've finally found what I was meant to do." Jessica understood completely. "That's how I felt when I walked out of that adoption agency with the twins still in my arms." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold and pink. Jessica marveled at how different her life was now from that desperate day nearly a year ago. "I've been thinking," Jackson said suddenly, turning to face her. "The lease on your apartment is coming up for renewal next month." "Yes," Jessica acknowledged, wondering where this was leading. "I've been meaning to talk to you about that. I can start paying rent now. My new position certainly makes that possible." "Or," Jackson said carefully, "you could consider another option." Jessica raised an eyebrow, waiting. "This place has 5 bedrooms," he continued, "most of them sitting empty. Lily adores the twins, and they clearly feel the same about her. And he took a deep breath. "I love you, Jessica. I have for some time now." Jessica's heart soared at the words she'd been hoping to hear. "Jackson, I'm not suggesting we rush anything," he clarified quickly. "We could convert the East Wing into your own apartment if you want independence. Or you could keep your current place and we'll continue as we are. I just want you to know that there's a place for you and the twins here, with us. If that's something you might want." Jessica set down her wineglass and stepped closer to him. "Is this a business proposition, Mr. Montgomery?" she teased gently. A smile tugged at his lips. "Definitely not. This is entirely personal." "Good," Jessica said, closing the distance between them, "because I love you too." When their lips finally met, it felt like both an ending and a beginning. The closing of a chapter marked by struggle and uncertainty, and the opening of one filled with possibility. Later that evening, as all 3 children slept peacefully down the hall, Jessica and Jackson sat together on the balcony, his arm around her shoulders as they talked about the future, a future neither of them could have imagined a year earlier. "Do you believe in fate?" Jessica asked, thinking of the remarkable chain of events that had brought them together. Jackson considered the question seriously. "I believe in second chances," he said finally, "and in being brave enough to take them when they're offered." Jessica thought of the day she'd nearly signed those adoption papers, of how close she'd come to a completely different life. Instead, she'd found not just security for her children, but a family made whole in the most unexpected way, through shared struggles, mutual respect, and eventually, love. "To second chances, then," she said, raising her glass to his. "And to building something new," Jackson added, his eyes reflecting the promise of all that lay ahead. Inside, the twins slept beside the daughter who had shown them the joy of being an older sister, while outside, their mother embraced the future she never dared imagine, one where a desperate choice had led not to loss, but to completing a family that had been waiting to find each other all along.